Namaskaram. You are listening or watching to Malayalam FM's Connect with me, Sindhu Punnoose. Let us welcome our guest, Shae Parson. Welcome to our show, Shae.
Thank you so much for having me, Sindhu. It's an absolute pleasure to be on Malayalam's FM. It's been such an awesome experience getting to know, the work of the radio, but also some of the community events. So thank you so much for having me. A little bit about myself. So I am Miss Earth New Zealand 2025, but, day to day when I'm not wearing a tiara on my head, I am a data and AI consultant, currently at Curious, which is Spark's data and AI division. So we go out to businesses and we help them implement data strategies, AI strategies, I guess you could say the more businessy human side of these technologies, helping, bring everybody on the journey, helping to, drive adoption and make sure that the investment that these businesses put into these technologies is fully realized.
Great. Shae, you have got a very rare blend of skills. You are in the hem of two hot topics, I would say. AI, artificial intelligence. Everybody is talking about artificial intelligence nowadays, plus the glamour industry. You are the title winner of Miss Earth New Zealand 2025. Which one is more competitive, Shae?
That's a really good question, Sindhu. I would probably say, just because it's moving so fast, artificial intelligence, it was interesting because I was kind of working or moving into the industry when I decided that maybe pageants was something I was going to explore. And it's definitely been a bit of an edge. And while I definitely say, pageantry is competitive, I think the skills you learn have largely remained the same. They evolve as, anything does over time, but not to the same rapid speed that, artificial intelligence technology does. Like, I wrote a thesis last year on, comparing recurring neural networks, which is like a type of artificial intelligence algorithm, and also transformers. And I handed that in last year, and I would probably say now that thesis is completely redundant because the technology's just moved so far beyond that, where we are now in like May 2026. So, yeah.
Can you throw some more light about, other than ChatGPT, what is artificial intelligence for a common man?
Of course. So it's really interesting because this new wave of AI, while that might be new to us, artificial intelligence itself is not. It's something that is arguably about 70 years old, if not more than 200 years old. So the first computer algorithms were written actually by a woman in, the 19th century. And artificial intelligence, as we kind of would define it in the modern era, was, pioneered by, the likes of Alan Turing. So if you've watched The Imitation Game, and it's been a technology that's kind of been, underpinned the internet, the way that we kind of know it and use it. So a Google search, it's a very primitive form of artificial intelligence, but it uses those technologies, it uses those algorithms, which are essentially kind of, if you really want to boil it down, it's a math equation. It's, there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of power and, electricity and, data that gets processed. But ultimately, artificial intelligence has been something that we've been using for a very long time. Which
we may not realize as such. I'm using artificial intelligence, like you mentioned. Google search. We all do Google search.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, even like Netflix recommendations, that's using algorithms to pull data on like, okay, well, you watch this show, so, look at these shows next. We think you'll like them. And that's based off other aggregated data. So while, things like ChatGPT and, Gemini and Claude and all those tools, seem to be something that hasn't been with us very long, the technology itself has been embedded into like our daily life for a very long time.
Absolutely. Shae, how you developed or how you unfolded your passion towards data?
I think my passion in this space is very much the human side of it. I'm very driven by having, as you say, the common man understand what this technology is, the opportunity it presents to make people's lives better and to democratize, opportunity for people, but also to understand, I guess, the safety elements of it. Like people don't realize how much data other people have on them and what does that mean for them, moving around and the information that, big business or big tech has on them, and, how can you be aware of that? And then how can you make sure, you might use things differently to ensure that you're a bit safer online, essentially?
Yeah. When you say safer online, what are the major measures we should be aware of or should be cautious about?
Yeah, so it's funny because this moves away from, I guess, AI and data more into like the cybersecurity space. But on a personal level, if you are browsing the internet, protecting your devices by using, like virtual private networks, using alias email addresses that might link back to your original email address. I mean, it's all about comfort, but I think at a very basic level, being really clued up about, things like passwords, not trying to use the same one for everything, using a password manager, because if we go back to data, right, there's a lot of, I guess, nefarious actors on the internet. There's a lot of, hackers and stuff. And if you're using the same password for everything, if a hacker gets that one password, who's to say they can't log into your bank account, your IRD, all of these different elements. Obviously, more government-oriented organizations and banks and stuff have, your multi-factor verification to prevent it from happening. They're moving at a pace. They're trying to keep up and keep their customers safe just as much as, you would want to be safe as well. So.
Can the listeners know about your academic background so they can, if those who are interested to pursue their career in the AI space, it would be interesting for them?
Yeah, so I actually originally studied, so when I left high school, I studied something very different from, I guess, what I do now, but the skills transferred. So I did a double degree in business and communications, so marketing, strategy, all that good stuff. Worked for a couple of years, ended up at a startup. And when you're at a startup, especially during that scaling phase, it's really exciting, but you also get exposed to different parts of the business quite a lot because you're kind of rolling your sleeves up and you're like, whatever, gets this done.
Your way, you will take it. Yeah.
Pretty much. And that was exactly and I would say that's kind of the person I am professionally as well. Like I love a good challenge. It's been a very big journey for me to learn how to say no and not take too much on, but more on that one later.
I think it's a nature for a lot of women.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the amount of women you're spinning like 8 different plates at once, it's crazy. But yeah, so doing that, I was exposed to, like how technology is designed, tested, released, implemented, improved, that whole really cool sort of iterative process. So I was like, I really want to learn more about the technical side of things. So I signed up for, kind of, I wouldn't say in a joking way, but very much in a like, I highly doubt I'm going to get in. So I'll, it's nice to just put this forward. So I applied for a master's in computer science. Okay. Got in with no technical background whatsoever, but very much I think what helped me was, I had to learn the basics of, Python and R and SQL. Yeah. But me being able to explain like the significance of the technology and lean on those other skills I had from like working in business and marketing. Yeah. That really helped me do actually quite well in my master's degree because I could really dig into the deeper questions beyond like the code. And at that point, ChatGPT was still relatively early on, but it was enough for me to like lean on when I couldn't figure something out. I was using that and like Stack Overflow to be like, what's going on with my code? I don't understand. But I would say, yeah, if for anyone that is thinking about moving into the space, I think 2 things, like just try, like what's the harm? And I think also realizing that a lot of unique skills that other industries give you become very, very useful in the space, because we're finding, and we're finding this, seeing the sort of pattern of businesses in New Zealand who are trying to implement AI. They're investing in the technical side, but no one's adopting it. So, when they go back to their, board or whoever's funding them, for more money to continue the project, there's no return on investment. There's no proof. There's no adoption. They've just made this technology and they've realized, oh no, nobody's using it. No one wants to use it. So understanding, the more human elements of how do we get everyone at our business to come on the ride and become comfortable, because I'm totally aware that people have differing levels of comfort with AI, and it's scary. I'm in the industry and I'm a bit fearful about where things could go. So learning how those other skills, you learn them in industries like healthcare, marketing. You learn how to really get into someone's mind and help bring them along with you, right? Because if you're in healthcare, for example, right, you're having these tough conversations all the time. So learning how to adapt that to the technical world is incredibly, incredibly useful.
Yeah, great. Shae, how can you debunk the myth of people having the thought, oh, AI is coming, it's going to snatch my job?
It's a very good point, and probably a question I get asked at every party, every family reunion, everywhere I go.
Oh, you are the AI person who is going to take away my job.
Yeah, oh, do you think I'm going to have a job in 2 years? I mean, we're seeing this now. A lot of companies that have, for lack of a better word, obliterated their workforces in this pursuit of AI. It hasn't worked entirely because, yes, AI can automate a lot of different things, but you still need the human in the loop to, make sure that the information's correct, make sure that it's not going, there's been stories of tech companies that have had it and it's gone, Claude's gone and deleted their entire database, which is a catastrophic move. So there's that element, if it happens then, eventually they might come back and want to hire people because they're oh, this is not actually working out how we thought it was. And that comes back to my point, right, of bringing everyone on the journey and making sure that you're doing it in a really measured way. The second point, and this is a point, even I've come to terms with it as someone in the industry, and I've seen the capabilities of what, the latest release of Copilot can do. It can create slides. It can go through this incredible analysis of Excel spreadsheets that it would have taken me days to do,
Yeah.
For me, it's like the internet, right? We used to have post offices full of people manually sending letters. Back in the days, I think about some of Spark's history, where I work. There used to be people behind the scenes of, the phones, plugging in different things and transferring someone to a different line was a full-on manual process, The way of the world is that, we will continue to innovate and we'll continue to change. The labour market is going to change. That is something that's kind of
for certain.
Yeah, it's it's an assured fact, right?
Yeah.
It's about seeing what the technology can't do. And it's understandable to have that fear and that, the scaremongering is in a way valid because, it's people's, economic, it's their livelihoods that could be at stake. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that this technology can't do yet. It can't have a deep conversation. It doesn't have the ability just yet to really, understand how someone else is feeling. And, that's why when I get asked, oh, what should I know how to do to, move through this wave? I'm know how to sell and know how to talk to people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is going to be the new professional currency.
I also understand you have been a speaker for the AI Summit. What was your topic?
Yeah, of course. So I spoke at the AI Summit in 2024, so the organisation that runs it, the AI Forum, I've been involved with them for quite a while now. So at that summit, I was speaking about, Māori data sovereignty and how we can include more Māori in the conversation around AI, simply because AI is going to be so present in everybody's lives. You know, it was like, for me, I was seeing, if we don't start talking about this now, you know, the communities that I hold close to my heart, you know, people I'm even like related to, or people from, you know, where my grandfather's from down in Gisborne, they're going to get left behind. And that was something that made me like, you know, kind of upset but motivated at the same time, because if you can have those conversations about co-designing with, you know, Māori groups, iwi, you know, bringing them on the digital journey as well, because they are already kind of, you know, they're disadvantaged already by, you know, the digital divide in New Zealand. So it's like, if you can start to bring those conversations up at forums like the AI Summit, then you can start to, you know, like, and I'm not saying I'm taking credit for driving this conversation. I'm just one of the many figures in it.
Yeah.
It's, for me, it was important to bring up something that's part of me, right? Because, you know, being Māori and stuff, it was important for me to talk about, you know, how that can look when you design and build and release technology. So the context for that was, it was at my previous role at Callaghan. We released a tool called GovGPT. And, you know, during that process, we made sure to bring along Whariki, which is like a Māori business network, to understand, you know, sort of some of the Indigenous considerations around building the technology, making sure that, you know, we were following like Māori data sovereignty principles and whatnot, you know, making sure that we weren't, you know, touching, I guess, like sacred or tapu data and all of those things. So that was what my discussion at the summit and my speaker, you know, session was about. But in the AI forum itself, I'm involved, you know, with a lot of people that I admire a lot. And sometimes I go, wow, there's all these successful people, and then there's me. But, you know, we have a lot of conversations about, you know, how do we, you know, some of the people in this group have influenced policy, or, you know, some of the, like the national AI strategy, all of that stuff from an Indigenous perspective. It's about getting that seat at the table, you know, to make sure that everybody's represented when we're talking about this technology, because it's almost like we want to make sure that the communities that are affected by this, you know, whatever community that may be, they get to write their own chapter, not that chapter gets written for them. And they, you know, they're part of that conversation around technology. You know, it's about even getting in the community and educating some of our, you know, people on what the technology is and how to be safe. And yeah, so all of that.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful initiative. You are trying to lessen the disconnect with the Indigenous community to the AI space,
Yeah.
which is great. Normally, the perception is people who are leading in technology side, they focus on technology. They don't have a different world other than AI or technology.
Yeah.
But in your case, it's totally contradictory. You are into the AI technology space, and at the same time, you excelled in the glamour industry. You have been the winner for Miss Earth. How you combine these two different fields?
Honestly, it's really interesting because a lot of skills I've learned, you know, in my professional career have actually really helped me in the sort of like, you know, the glamour, the beauty pageant space, because, you know, learning who I am and like almost learning what brand I have as a beauty queen has been really helpful, because I know what to take on, what not to take on, you know, can even influence something as potentially that's something that seems as, you know, trivial as my styling. Like I become very aware of what I think suits me, what I don't think suits me. You know, I've even used AI to help me build, you know, like wardrobe plans or, you know, like schedules, or, you know, make things really easy for me so I can focus on, you know, coming in here and having conversations, you know, doing what I need to do. I've been very lucky. A lot of people in my professional network have been, you know, not just supportive, but also like really helpful in both my career and my, you know, beauty pageant career, I guess, as well. So, you know, I've been really lucky that when I've been on a competition campaign, you know, like last year for Miss Earth, you know, there were speaking opportunities that were presented to me because they were like, you know, we'd love to hear your perspective. So it's been really cool to manage the both of them. I was worried that if I was going to start doing pageantry, that I wouldn't get taken as seriously in the professional world. I think especially, you know, with some recent occurrences or, things that have happened in the beauty pageant industry, I was a bit worried that being, even associated with it would negatively impact me. But, I think the result is, in how I show up. I have to show up in a certain way, be professional, all of those good things. So thankfully that's not affected me too much. And if anything, everybody in my professional network's been really, really lovely. And I guess if they haven't, I haven't heard about it. So it doesn't really matter to me.
Absolutely. And listening to you, I feel like it gave you an edge rather than it had a negative impact on you. Because the technology side had given you a upper hand or edge over maybe other contestants. We never know.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say because I've actually not judged a pageant yet, but it'll be exciting to one day. For me, I think because of what I was doing, it allowed, it got me a little bit more exposure, I don't know, than potentially another candidate who didn't do this, because all these pageant bloggers were like, oh, that's kind of cool, I want to talk to her about that. So it definitely helped. And, it can be a bit challenging sometimes, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm navigating these two completely different worlds. But ultimately, it's been really rewarding. So
absolutely. What's your future plans? Will you be focusing more on the pageant side or more on the AI side?
So knowing me, I'm trying to take on way too much, but probably a bit of both. I definitely, part of me thinks maybe I have, one more pageant left in me, watch this space. Something may or may not be revealed on the 30th of May at Life Church in Monaco, but, we'll see. But for me, I think, once I do this pageant, if I go and do a competition, because I'm always going to have this what if about going overseas, right?
Yeah.
I definitely want to grow into the AI space. And as to your point earlier, I want to grow into maybe building a business and see, going on the entrepreneurship journey, as terrifying as it is, and seeing, where my mark is in the world a bit more. But yeah, fitting that in with a bit of travel. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So what will be your one piece of advice to our listeners who are especially in the tech space, maybe focusing too much on their work, getting stressed out or worn out, taking too much more than what they can chew? What would be your advice to them?
I think my advice, to your listeners is, I think, and it sounds really, I guess it might sound a bit strange, but take a step back from everything you're doing and really dig into what is your why? Why are you getting out of bed in the morning? Once you start to figure that out, it's a lot easier to prioritize all the things you have going on in your life, but learning how to say no, because once you do that sort of, unpicking about what's important to me, what's not important to me.
Yeah.
And, for me, when I did this with myself, and it's a constant process, right? You don't just do it once and then you're done.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, okay, building a future, building a brand, doing good things for the community. Those were sort of the three most important things for me. So it was really easy from then to be if something came forward and I was a bit worried about being overcommitted, I was like, okay, that might not align with what I'm doing. It doesn't mean it's not a good opportunity. It's just,
not aligning with what you want to do.
Exactly. And it allows you to be that little bit more selfish, because I totally understand. I've been there, I've taken on too much and it's all fallen over, There's only so many plates you can spin before they all start smashing on the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think taking that step back, realizing, what makes you, what makes you special, and what do you want to do, that's, that helps to feed into the other pieces of advice people might give, believing in yourself and stuff, because you'll have a really clear idea of, I know myself, So, yeah, I think that's kind of what's helped me through this thing, but also, yeah.
That's a very powerful and positive way of thinking, Shae. Thank you so much for sharing your experience in the AI space and your dreams about entrepreneurship and how you want to take up your pageant journey. So wishing you all good luck And thanks for having with Malayalam FM.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy.